Good afternoon. My name is David Betts, and my final capstone is called Navigating the Newspaper. And my goal is to build a model that could classify op-ed articles from news articles. My inspiration was the New York Times, all the news that's fit to print, as their motto goes. When I lived in New York, it always felt like an accomplishment to read the entire newspaper, the entire Sunday paper. And as I would read it on the weekends, I kind of realized and would think about how important it is as a tool for keeping up with current events and things going on around the city, but also how it's a really important piece of an American history. I would sometimes imagine New Yorkers of centuries past perusing through the abundance of data as they rode through the train downtown, or took a taxi across town, or lounged in an apartment exactly like the one that I was living in. But the inspiration is also the problem, in that who has the time to read through the entire newspaper, and honestly, who can tell the difference? And so this is what it looks like today. And one of the problems is that the internet has made some of these issues that much worse, and that it's hard to tell the difference between news, opinion, and in some cases, even advertisements or podcasts. So the solution was to build a model to classify op-ed from news. And these are some of the tools I used, with kind of a special emphasis on pandas for data engineering. The data that I started with was 10 years of New York Times articles. And one of the things that I noticed initially was that over the past decade, the number of articles actually published actually printed in the newspaper has stayed pretty steady, but the number of articles that the New York Times produces or publishes on the internet has wavered throughout the years, perhaps because of the economy or other reasons. But one of the fundamental things is that no matter where I started, I did have imbalanced classes, and that perhaps rightly so, the New York Times produces about 5 times as many news articles as they do opinion articles. So the initial results were not great. I had high accuracy, but that was mainly because of my imbalanced classes, and my precision was very low. So this number in the top right-hand corner of that confusion matrix is what I was really aiming to bring down. And the initial top words were interesting. The most important word when distinguishing news from op-ed was the word said. And you also see that it's using some topical words like Trump to distinguish news from opinion, but that's not really what I was going for. I was going not for topics, but more sentiment or the types of words that might be more opinion-based or news-based. So to get around this issue, I extracted the quotations. I removed all the quotes from the text because I really wanted to focus on the words that the reporters were actually using. I also removed capitalized words, so it removed words like Mr., Alexander, representative that wouldn't help me see the underlying bias or underlying opinion. I also added said to my list of stop words, and I continued to filter the articles that I was using. So for my next iteration, I actually focused just on articles that use the keyword United States politics and government. In this plot on the left, the yellow bar is the number of articles that have that as a keyword, according to the New York Times API. And that has increased over the past 4 years for obvious reasons. And so I also focused on just those 4 years, 2017 through 2020 for the second iteration of my data. I maintained a similar balance of op-ed to news, and I was able to bring that precision number up. And you can see in the top right-hand corner, relative to the others, it has been brought down a bit, while accuracy and recall remain pretty high. So the top features initially, it seems kind of ambiguous, but when you do a word count, you kind of look at the way these two types of news are using these words, you really start to see a difference. One of the first things I notice in this iteration of the model is the variance in the use of the word your and our. So that second person plural, I think is significant in terms of using our versus your. I just think that there's also a huge difference in the number of times that it was used, your versus our. Also the imperative verb do, which would go with like do vote or do say this or do something, whatever it may be. That imperative word is also used more often, more frequently in op-ed stories. But then there's still words like according, which I would say are similar to the word said, in that they're kind of words of attribution and they're reportery words. So for my next steps, I think one important thing would be to do part of speech labeling and actually pull out all of the pronouns that are being used so I can see if there are any other pronoun disparities like the one we see here. Then also some n-grams to see what that do is referring to. Do what exactly? What is the New York Times imploring its readers to do? Then also, I would like to expand the data set to kind of reduce some of those words at the end that are more news-based words. And that's it. Thank you for listening.